Welcome back to the Rueb Show. We're here, episode 5. We made it, Maddie. Episode 5. Maddie, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, doing great. Happy Thursday, man. Hey, look at us right now. Do you see this? Do you see producer Matt's over here hard at work, man? After that episode 4 that we got there. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah, first and foremost, we want to say, thank you so much for all the support you guys showed on that last episode. Really awesome. Great response, great feedback, and we're going to keep churning out episodes. So if you like what you see, hit that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff that, all the YouTubers say.
Yeah. Get us into the YouTube algorithm. Blow us up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the goal, right? Yeah, we look damn good with these lights, Maddie. Look at this. I feel like every single episode we're just getting, we're getting one thing better. Like, look at we buried the lead. Look at these graphics, man. Look at this little overlay producer Matt threw together.
I'm just saying, I'm biased, but it's coming along. We're working and soon enough, we might be able to do a little live stream with the fans, all of our fans.
Absolutely. Maddie teasing it a little bit. We do have some plans. We think next Thursday we're going to do a live stream, maybe around I think 7 o'clock-ish, 7:30-ish, maybe 8. But we will definitely have that up on YouTube. So if you are a subscriber, you will be able to see that. And we'll definitely relay that information on all of our social medias as well.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. So today is actually one of my favorite days of the year.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I am obsessed with the NBA. I love the NBA, all the news, all the drama, everything. And today was NBA trade deadline day. I just did a about an hour-long podcast and Facebook Live with my other podcast that I do on the sports network called Hoop with Rueb. So if you guys are interested in some really in-depth NBA talk, it's a weekly podcast that comes out on Thursdays, and you guys can go check that out on iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff.
We got to give James' computer a break.
We'll link that in the description below.
James.
That's what people say, right, Matt?
Take a second. We couldn't hear you.
What?
We couldn't hear you. You were lagging. I'm gonna do the promotion for the Chop Sports and your Hoops with Rueb podcast here while you try to get your internet situated. I think that the fans we gotta do something here to raise some crowdfunding to get some fiber up there in the Rueb household. But James does a podcast weekly. He's part of the group Chop Sports. They have a Facebook group with almost 2,000 members. They have a number of different podcasts, and James has a NBA focused one. Like I said, they come out every week. Today they did one on the NBA trade deadline. So hopefully your internet's back with us, and if you want to subscribe to that, you can find the Hoops with Rueb on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Is it on there yet?
Apple Podcast as well. Yep. How do I sound? Do I sound beautiful? Am I lagging?
Well, I don't know if you ever sound beautiful, but you're back and you're not lagging. So
I X'd out the browsers. Don't want to tell anyone what was on there, but I X'd out the browsers, so we should be good to go.
Yeah. Well, I told you to get a microphone for a long time. You got a microphone.
We got the mic.
We blew up. I've been telling you to get a computer for even longer. So imagine when you get a new computer and new webcam. People are going to see the Rueb in the Rueb show in 4K. It will be a sight to see. But let's see what do you think of who are the biggest winners and losers of the NBA trade deadline today?
So my favorite move today was Victor Oladipo to the Miami Heat. I absolutely love this signing for the Heat. They add a two-way guard in Oladipo, and now they have 3 extremely good two-way players in Bam, Victor Oladipo and Jimmy Butler, and they are constructing themselves to compete with the Brooklyn Nets, which is what every team in the East should be doing. You should be striving to beat the best, and that the best right now is the Brooklyn Nets in the East. So that was a very, very good move. And then the Magic absolutely cleared house today. They moved on from Nikola Vucevic. They moved on from Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier. So they all went to contenders, kind of. I don't know if the Bulls are contenders with Vooch, but my favorite signing of those three is Aaron Gordon to the Denver Nuggets. And Aaron Gordon gets to play with the MVP, Nikola Jokic. And if you guys go back and you listen to episode 1 of Hoops with Rueb, you'll hear me absolutely praise Nikola Jokic, crown him the MVP, and he's the favorite at the sports books right now to win it. And I don't blame them, because this guy just churns out triple doubles left and right.
Yeah, what do you call him? The 7-foot Steve Nash or something like that?
Yeah, he is a combination of Larry Bird, Steve Nash, and Dirk Nowitzki. He has the best traits of all three of those players.
Yeah, and we're not going to go over everything that you went over on your podcast today, but I don't want to bury the lead. But I mean, this takes the Nuggets to the best team in the West, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on that LeBron and Anthony Davis injury.
Yeah.
Anything can happen if one of those two are missing for a playoff run. But the Nuggets are, top 3, top 4 team in the West now, and absolutely a competitor to win the title for sure. They're title contenders.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised. The Bucks had a pretty quiet day. Do you think that they have a hole that they kind of missed on today that they could have had to really propel them to compete in the playoffs?
Yeah, for me, they actually added PJ Tucker just a few days before the trade deadline, but they kind of blew their load in the offseason. They went ahead and they traded 3 first-round picks for Drew Holiday, so they really didn't have much else to give up. And the Bucks are in ultimate win-now mode, because in that Drew Holiday deal, they gave up an unprotected 2027 pick, which, if you follow the NBA, who knows what's going to happen with the Bucks 6 years down the road. It's almost irresponsible to give up an unprotected pick that many years in advance. So if the Bucks don't get a title, I mean, they really need one, and they need to cash in on Giannis in his prime.
Yeah, I mean, they really went. I mean, and to put all your eggs in the Giannis bucket is not a bad bucket to be in, but I think that the East is tough now. I mean, you've got the Nets, you've got Miami. I think that's a scrappy team. I've always loved Jimmy Butler. I love that Jimmy Butler story when he was in Minnesota, where he went and got the practice squad guys in practice and beat the starting lineup. So I love that kind of attitude when you're playing, and I'll be interested to see how the East goes now.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm really happy that they were able to hold on to Tyler Hero. I think he's an integral scoring option off the bench for them. So they were really able to keep that core intact. The only guy from that core that they lost was Kelly Olynyk, who's an interesting player who could play the stretch 5. Really going to miss him. But when you replace him with Oladipo, I'm sure they're feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah. And let's talk about Orlando for a second. How many picks? How many draft? They're going to have half the draft picks next year with the way they were trading today.
Oklahoma City Thunder have that title of having the most draft picks. Fun Oklahoma City Thunder fact. I don't even know if you know this, Matt. Over the next 7 years, they have 34 draft picks. 17 first-round picks, 17 second-round picks. So we'll see what they're able to turn those into. But, Matt, I mean, they have literally the entire draft.
What are they going to do? I mean, they're going to draft 3 NBA teams? Like, what's the point of that?
Really what they're going to try to do is trade those picks for valuable assets, like to go trade 2 of those first-round picks or 3 of them for a Nikola Vucevic or a Drew Holiday, hopefully even higher caliber superstars. And then hopefully when they bring in those superstars, they hit on a, top 5 two really, really high prospects can hit on them, and then that will attract free agents to come to Oklahoma City. So that's the biggest thing, is they need to create a foundation that makes it attractive for free agents to come to, and they have a great building block there in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I love him as a basketball player.
Yeah, I think he's one of the young stars in the league. I think it'll be fun to see him grow. And then let's touch on the Bulls a little bit, because I think they kind of missed out on, I know they were eyeing Lonzo Ball to add to that core, but of Levine and Vooch now. But what do you think about the Bulls? Are they playoff bound now? Like, what do you think of that addition?
Yeah, I definitely think the Bulls will at least make it to the play-in game, which, if you guys aren't familiar, the NBA is doing a play-in tournament for the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th seeds. Basically, it's like a double elimination bracket where the 7, 8 start in the winner's bracket, 9, 10 start in the loser's bracket, to determine who gets those last two spots to try to prevent tanking in the NBA. I think that they're going to be in that play-in tournament, and when you have Vooch and Levine, you're able to go bucket for bucket with anyone in the league, but they don't have the defense and the on-ball defenders to basically stop anybody. I don't see how they play any defense, and that's why I really wanted them to go out and get Lonzo Ball, because Lonzo Ball is one of the most underrated on-ball defenders in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think you're downplaying Laurie a little bit. I like Markkanen playing that 4 spot. I mean,
I was actually surprised that they didn't trade him today. And another interesting piece that the Bulls added was Daniel Tice. I mean, he's a great backup 4, backup 5 guy.
Yeah, I was actually surprised they got rid of Carter, because they put a lot of draft stock in him, but I guess he just never really panned out to what they wanted him to be.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I like Wendell Carter a ton, and I think the Magic did a great job getting him in return, because he's the perfect young project piece that you want to get back in a trade. And they got R.J. Hampton back in the Nuggets trade, who's another project player. So the Magic are taking really good shots. They're acquiring draft picks, and they're throwing those darts at the young players with some upside that have disappointed early in their career, but we know they have a ton of potential.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Houston, asked earlier, Terrence Ross, what's the over-under he takes 22 shots next game with everybody gone? What do you think?
Man,
I mean, it's got to be over.
Yeah, it's got to be over. And he was funny on social media today. Yeah. He was kind of live tweeting all through. He was supposed to get traded today, and he didn't get dealt. So, which is crazy. I mean, maybe he's a buyout option. It hasn't come out yet, but maybe he's a buyout option, and they can kind of get off of him and allow him to go somewhere else, which is interesting. He may be interested in that, or he's just going to be out there jacking up 30 shots.
Yeah. What did he tweet out? I'm the captain now, or something like that from.
Yeah. Yep. Which is funny. Yep. I do like that a lot.
So with the buyouts that were, I know Aldridge got bought out, and who was the other one? Drummond, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Where do you think the landing spots are for them?
Aldridge is already with the Heat, so he is with the Miami Heat. Yep. And then the Andre Drummond landing spot's interesting. I think there are 3 suitors. It's going to be the Nets, the Lakers, the 2 contenders, and then the Celtics are an interesting team. Celtics were really disappointing today at the deadline. They went and added Evan Fournier for 2 second-round picks, but I really expect them to do more and go get a big like John Collins, Vooch, or Aaron Gordon. And they didn't do that again, and Danny Ainge refuses to pull the trigger when necessary while they're in their years when they can be a contender in the East. So, I mean, they're going to go and get Drummond, and they already got rid of Tice and whatnot. So,
yeah, I'll be interested. And another thing, you touched on John Collins. I feel like he's done a complete 360 this year, because at the beginning of the year, he didn't want to play for the Hawks. He wanted to be traded. And now he's saying he wants to stay in Atlanta and play his whole career here. So I don't know what happened this year, what changed for him, but I thought he was for sure going to get traded today. And then who from the Hawks, they traded Rondo to the Clippers, which I think was a good move.
Yeah, Rondo never fit on that Hawks team. I think the Clippers are a much, much, much better landing spot for him. Playoff Rondo. He was the third guy on that Lakers team last year, so Definitely a great landing spot for him. And then in terms of John Collins, I mean, you got to think the Hawks invest in him this offseason, right? They have to at this point.
Max, is it max contract? I know that's going to fluster a lot of Atlanta fans, but he's got to be a max contract guy, right?
Yeah, I think that they're going to have to. That's what he's going to want. And you know what I mean? If they let him hit the market, they could send a qualifying offer. But I don't think they're going to do that if he's out there attracting max deals from a bunch of different teams.
Be interested to see. Interested to see.
Absolutely. Yep. Very, very interesting. Okay, cool. So that's the trade deadline stuff. If you guys want to hear some more of that, I break down even more players and get into more depth on the Hoops with Rueb podcast. We will link that into the description. And as Matt said, go join Chop Sports on Facebook. Okay, great. All right, so moving in to a different topic, Maddie. This is one that you wanted to hit on. So go ahead. Go ahead, lead us off here.
Yeah, so this is one that I've been wanting to talk about, and I know. So you and I have been friends for years. We've done a lot. We talked about a lot of different things. We've seen a lot of different things. I know we talked about Bitcoin in episode 2. We've talked a little bit about Draftkings, I think, along the show, which we can talk a little bit more later in the show. I'm sure there's some people that invest in the stock market. It could be a side hustle, a number of different things. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because for those that know you, you are a little bit stubborn, and you seem to, when you take a stand, when you take a stand, you take a stand and you don't move. It just kind of like you at the 1 yard line in that tweet from last week where you got rocked on the goal line. But what I wanted to talk to you about was just have a discussion on how to know when to enter something like Bitcoin, stock market, investing, side hustle, drop shipping, Forex, whatever that may be, or when to leave, like when not to join, when have you missed the boat? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you do research on that? Like, do you just look at people in the industry? Like, what's your go-to strategy there?
So for me nowadays, when it comes to stuff like that, is I am consuming a ton of content. If there's a space that I'm interested in, I want to hear as many opinions on that subject as possible, and then I want to identify who I more so trust, because there will always be people who are specialists in areas, and there's also going to be a bunch of, con artists and people faking it and stuff. And understanding who you want to follow in terms of, getting into smart investments early really comes down to diving into and researching them heavily. For me, I'm definitely way more aggressive. If someone that I trust or respect, or I think is a really sharp person, I'm way more willing to get in super early with the understanding that it may fail just because of the potential return and upside on it. So for me, something like Topshot, one guy who I respect and I think is really smart is my coworker's brother, Jonathan Bales Football. I think I've referenced him on the show before. Very, very smart dude. Wrote his Substack article about Topshot on January 14th. And if you got in at that time and you kind of followed in his footsteps, you made massive returns. And him and a couple other guys that I really, really respect were back in Bitcoin in 2015. I first heard about it on podcasts back then. And just any area you're interested in getting to, I want to hear from the best and brightest people. I want to hear every aspect, and I want to hear the downsides. I want to know the risk of what I'm getting into. And knowing when something's too late is a really interesting question. I always joke around and say if my dad asks me about it, it's usually the top. If it makes it to my dad's ears or his train of thought, then that's probably the top. We've missed our point of entry, and it may be time to get out or sell.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, I know, let's use Bitcoin for an example. Like, everyone when the first big jump, wasn't that like 2015, 2016?
2015, yeah, 2015, 2016. And then the massive one, the one that was, getting covered on the news every day, and when your parents started talking about it, was 2017.
Okay, so let's just talk about. I'm going to use that for an example because I think that peak when it made the news and everything,
Yeah.
Bitcoin was like $18,000 per Bitcoin,
Yep.
which was historic. And now it's 55,000, 60,000, depending on the day. So everyone at that point thought that was the top. That
Yep.
was it. And you were chasing. I know friends that invested, a grand, $5,000 when it was 18,000, and then initially lost their tail on their investment. I don't know if they stuck with it or not, but and that could be another thing too. Like when you invest in something, how do you know when to cut it loss?
Yeah.
And we'll use Topshot like Bales. I know that he invested. That wasn't he one of the first ones to invest like thousands of dollars? Wasn't it $25,000 into
Yeah,
it?
they bought like a $30,000 John Morant moment is what they did.
Yeah, and that's a lot of money for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And
For everyone, that's a lot of money.
yeah, no, I mean that's a lot of money. You're investing in something that's intangible. You can't see it. It could have gone down in value, could have gone up in value. Do you, when you're riding that train, like how do you know when enough is enough? Like, do you have like a mindset for you personally where in that example, let's say you do it for 30,000, you make $5,000. Is that your selling point where you're happy no matter what that could have gone to? Or do you look back afterwards and be like, I should have kept it for, until it hit double value or whatever it may be?
Yeah, no, I'm probably way more likely, and one investment strategy that I really, really try to stick to as much as possible is kind of ride your winners. I mean, I think way too many people get out too early when they're right. They're like, oh, they're very happy with their gains and don't realize that they should maybe potentially be reinvesting even more. So all of these people who have made money on Top Shot, and if you're a true believer in it, or Bitcoin right now too, if you really believe in the fundamental principles of something, you should be riding it out. Even when you get gains, it's nice to skim some off the top and take a little bit out and limit your risk some, but generally I'm riding my winners to the end, and that's kind of that stubborn attitude that you brought up before, but it's hurt me in the past, but it's most certainly helped me a ton as well.
Yeah, and I know we both have been playing daily fantasy sports or DFS for years. I think I go back into like 2014 or 2015 for football. You actually taught me basketball, I think in like 2015.
Years ago, yep.
Years ago. And I think that's one of the things that, so for those that don't know, daily fantasy sports with a site like Draftkings or FanDuel, you have a set salary, you create a roster, and based on that salary, it changes every day. So someone's price could be different every single day, depending on their matchup, who's playing, how they've been playing, historic play, etc. You can play tournaments where you can win a lot of money, but less people win, or you can play in double up contests where you're just basically trying to beat 50% of the field. So let's talk about that for a little bit, because I know that's something that you're heavily involved in.
That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean that's your other day job, so to call it. I shout out DFS Karma. Why don't you go ahead and just go over what they're about for us? I'll give you 30 seconds to shout them out, and then we can dive into DFS a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to DFS Karma and Bet Karma. Me and the team over there, I mean, we're grinding every single day. If there's a sport on DraftKings or a sport available at your sportsbook, we cover it over at DFS Karma and Bet Karma. So head on over there, hop in our Discord. It's completely free. Chatfest.com. If you direct you right to our free Discord, where you can get access to all of our coaches and analysts.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, I mean, when he says every sport, he means every sport. I think it was a few months ago, I was getting texts at 2 in the morning for Korean baseball, where
Those are some sad times. Setting alarms for 4 a.m. to wake up and grind Korean baseball lineups. Oh man, dude, COVID was some crazy times.
Korean baseball, there were four Kims in my lineup. I
Yep.
think I put in one wrong.
Korean baseball. Yeah, it was Korean baseball at 4 a.m. and then Counter Strike at 6, and then Call of Duty in the afternoon. Those are the sports we were grinding. But hey, we're in those streets, and we feel like we have an edge over our competition. So we love to share our knowledge and come on over and check it out.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your success, because last year you actually went on one of the best heaters in DFS you've ever been on when
Yeah.
the NBA bubble happened in the coronavirus. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, craziest heater of my life. I won like 19 of 20 slates or something like that. Just unbelievable results, which are not expected all the time. I mean, Matt will tell you I woke up every day and said, "Oh, I'm going to play lighter today. I don't think I like the slate." And then every day I was just aping in and investing more. And I mean, it was a incredible run. And I mean, we've carried that over right into this NBA season. We're having a great year, and we're going to continue to have a great year. I mean, especially during these COVID times, and a lot of guys sitting back to backs, and I mean, we see a ton of superstars sitting out right now. There is a massive edge to be had over on DraftKings and FanDuel, and listen, you don't got to do it all by yourself. We have 2,200 members in our Discord. We have over a dozen coaches, and I mean, we are legit grinding every day. I love DFS because of the game theory element. When you're doing a sports bet, it's just like you versus the book, you know? And the lines are super efficient. A lot of them are, if you have an edge, it's like a 55-45 edge. Like, I mean, it's okay, but over at DFS Karma, we're trying to realize, 10 to 15% edges and 10 to 15% ROIs on a season, and we will give you the tools and set you up for success.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things in DFS. Whenever I'm telling someone about it, you're not trying, like, your 19 of 20 slates is unheard of for those that
Yes.
don't know. Like, most of the time, like, if you're doing good, it's like a 60 to 65% win rate, and you're doing great. Like, because the goal is you're playing. If you're doing it smart, you're playing pretty much the same, amount every night, mitigating your risk. Trying, every once in a while you overinvest, or in James's case, every night you overinvest
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
winnings, and it's a lot of fun. Now, with that, we've had some bad losses because some of these tournaments can throw out $100,000 to the winner, $1 million for the winner. So tell us about your worst, like, bad. Well, let's talk about a good thing first. Let's talk about your favorite night. Do you have like one that you can remember
That's a
distinctly?
good question. Um, My honestly, one of my favorite slates was earlier this year when I had Deshaun Watson, Brandon Cooks stack.
Yeah.
That was a really really fun one. Brandon Cooks at like 10% ownership went for like 40. It was absolutely awesome. And then he won me money later in the year as well. But I specifically remember that early in the year, I think it was like week 4 or 5. It was awesome. So that's probably one of my favorite fantasy memories. Matt, what's one of your favorites before we get to some of the bad ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of my all-time favorites was when I was actually learning basketball. This was a few years ago. Your favorite, I mean, you still tell me, Matt, you can't predict overtime.
It's true.
And I told you one of the games was going to overtime. It was Chicago and Portland.
No, no, no. The Raptors, right?
Oh,
Wasn't it?
Raptors, that's it. Yeah, it was
Raptors.
when
Yep.
DeRozan was still on the Raptors.
And Joe Val. Yep.
Yeah. And I told you, I said, hey, this game's going to overtime. I'm going to stack the whole game. And you're like, of course, in James Rueb fashion, the game's not going to overtime, and you can't predict overtime. You can't predict injuries. And game went to overtime, and I won, I think 3 or 4 GPPs. That was my first tournament win. I won like $5,000 with $50 of entry. It was a super cool moment. Like, it really got me hooked, like for years to come.
Yep.
So
Yep, I remember that. I think the guys in the lineup, I think it was like Valanciunas, DeRozan, Lowry, Butler. I can't remember what other Bulls you had, but yeah, that was a fun night. I do remember that. I actually remember like where I was when that happened. I was like in an Applebee's with my friends, and you're texting me like crazy about overtime. You were freaking out. And you know what's great is you still give the same energy to this day when you're playing. You still get just as excited as you did the first day.
Exactly.
That's when you know you really enjoy something, you know?
Yeah, it's fun. It's a hobby. And for those that don't know, like James is a psychopath. He will set his lineup and then he'll go watch TV, play video games, go to sleep, whatever it is. If I'm not watching my players either physically on the screen, like in the game, I have to be refreshing the app, because if I'm not watching them, they're not going to perform for me. So that's when I'm playing, I am locked to my phone all night. When they have a rebound taken away or a steal taken away, like, I see that. So it's been a ton of fun. It's a fun thing to do. Keeps me busy at night, and probably more busy than the wife would like, but.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, anyone, I suggest giving it a try. The lineup building process is my favorite part.
Yeah.
As Matt said, I don't really sweat the games as hard as I used to, but I still really, really enjoy the grind of setting lineups.
Yeah. Well, as we hit on before, when you're getting into something, you should hear the negative things as well. Let's talk. I feel like every episode I've had some type of bad week, but let's start with yours.
So bad. I just earlier this year was easily my worst one. I mean, it was wild card weekend. I mean, look at how depressed I'm getting, guys. It was wild card weekend. I was up by probably like 15, 20 points in GPPs with the Steelers and Browns to play, and I had James Conner in the Steelers defense. You know, I was hoping for a low-scoring AFC North battle between two division rivals playing each other for the third time. Yeah, going to be low scoring. Steelers are going to try to establish the run. That great Steelers defense. Nope. I forget the final score, but it was like 48-43. It was that crazy Browns-Steelers game. I went from no doubt about it winning like 50 grand to nothing in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, that's brutal. I remember going into the game. James Conner was highly owned. Like, he wasn't.
Yep.
Like, everyone had the same theory, and I think the Browns had a bunch of injuries on top of that on their defense.
Yep. They had a bunch of guys out. So I mean, it was like a dream spot, and it was just. I mean, it was brutal. Brutal. Yeah. Look, I'm getting sad thinking about it. All right, go ahead, Matt. Take over the depressing storytelling time.
Yeah, this hurts. I think this is my second $1 million loss, $1 million plus loss in 5 episodes. I don't know how many more of these I can pull out, but on one of the contests in NFL every week is a millionaire maker contest where the first place gets $1 million, and it was the game where Drew Brees broke the record, and
at home. Yep.
So for those, it was 225,000 entries, and going into the last 2 minutes of the game, I was in like 18th place, and Traquan Smith caught the touchdown, that big touchdown for him that was the record. And what's crazy is I was one player off of winning the contest. And it was.
Do you remember who it was?
Traquan Smith and Theo Riddick. I played Theo Riddick at the time. I thought it was a good. Normally running back.
I played Traquan. literally remember this.
Yeah, it was bad, and I don't know why. Looking back on, and this is something that I'm so bad at because I look back on it and I'm like, why didn't I do this? It was so easy to pair Drew Brees with Traquan, and that literally was the $1 million lineup.
It's crazy.
And yeah, it hurts, but that's why I still won. I think like it was a $20 entry. I won, I think $5,000 or something like that. So it was still a great night, but just still a kick in the pants to lose out on something like that. But that's kind of the story of DFS. I was talking to some of my friends the other night. It's easy to dissect a lineup after you see all the scores and say I should have done
when
that.
When the cards get flipped over, everyone can everyone knows what they should have bet.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
Everyone can do that every night, but you need to make those critical decisions, and that's why I think I am good at DFS, is because I can make those difficult decisions and kind of live with them and feel like I'm making the best and most informed decisions. And that's what I try to do every single night, and kind of just take it day by day and have a clear conscience going into that night, and just always try to be confident, because if you're not confident in yourself, then you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean you can say every single night you make a decision with however much money you're putting in, like you're that confident in your decision. So I mean it's a pretty fun way to test your football skills. And they've got the main sports obviously are football, baseball, and NFL, but I mean they've got video games, tennis. I think there's tennis. I know there's football or golf. What else is there? MMA.
Everything.
I mean,
There's everything.
They've got everything
I
in
have,
there.
I have an interesting question for you, Matt, because we both like speculating on players.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the what do you call it? It's the sports card investment app that's been created?
Yeah,
Have you heard of that?
I've seen a lot of those. I've seen them for like cars and sports cards and a number of different things. But
What makes those really interesting to me is because they kind of operate as like a player stock market of sorts, which I think is really interesting. As someone who plays daily and can analyze players daily, I do like to have that alternative option where I take like longer career approaches when looking at players. I mean, one thing I missed out on, I told you, like second day of the season, I wanted to buy a Nikola Jokic rookie card for $1,000, and dummy me, it is now up to $7,000 since he is the favorite to win MVP. But I am holding a 15-1 Jokic MVP ticket. So hopefully that cashes. I'll be waiting on that.
yeah, I mean, so I get that, but I'm kind of doing that through NBA Top Shots. Like I've got, I think 3 or 4 Jokic cards. I had a Rudy Gobert because I thought he was a good choice for Defensive Player of the Year. But I haven't. Have you gotten into any of those apps where you invest in those cards like that? Because I think that's kind of what Top Shot's going to take over doing, right?
I don't know if that's really Top Shot's lane, because there's so many different factors with Top Shot. You have to factor in the serial and the series and all that other stuff. I just want to be invested in the player's career, not if he's a part of a challenge. That kind of is where I don't think it's more of a like player stock market. Like it, to me, yes, the value will go up on a player, but there's so many other factors that really determine that. If you know what I'm saying, there's just a few more variables instead of just strictly betting on the player's success.
No, I understand it. I just think the toughest thing, obviously, I need to go absorb some data on this and do some research on it, but I would want to know like how it's regulated, because that's always my worry, is like, how is this regulated? Can I trust this? Like, where's my money going? How can I get it back, etc.
No, from everything I've read, it looks super awesome. So it's definitely something that I'm really interested in. And just to touch on, I mean, the Top Shot stuff is or how do you feel about it right now? It is in a little bit of a bear market. We're not going to do a total Top Shot episode, but just a quick Matt update on your thoughts and feelings on Top Shot, please.
I actually think this is a great time to buy. They're coming out with new badges on the 31st. It's going to be like the rookie seal or rookie print or whatever it may be, like a normal card would have. And from what I understand of the release, I briefly glanced at it today. It's going to be added to existing cards. So like if you have like a LaMelo Ball that came out this year, you could get his rookie card sealed, and I think that will drive his price up. I think that's overall going to bring more of a market back to the existing cards in, because I know there's a lot of focus on the new cards that come out, but I know that I bought one of the expensive $230 packs. I was actually lucky enough to get one, and it dropped right when it came out. It was like everything was expensive, but the marketplace wasn't up, which was an issue we talked about in episode 1, and no one could get rid of them. And by the time you did, it was worth like a third of the value. But overall, I think that there's a lot going on that's positive. I do like some of the rules they've implemented where they required like a certain number of moments in order to buy a pack. I think it eliminated a lot of the bots and made people a little bit more serious about owning the moments and kind of collecting them. And I think that it drove the market up. If you saw on that day, the date like a week before they announced that, there were moments that were $2, and then that morning you couldn't buy any moment for under $25. So I think that's one that I'm going to be following here over the next week to see how the market kind of shifts up and down, because I did get approved. I think I told you the other day to withdraw. So yep. I haven't made the withdrawal yet. I'm trying to reinvest like we talked about. But it is an option there.
Yeah, absolutely. I had some friends text me today, kind of why I wanted to talk about this a little bit right before we got on the show, just asking me about NFTs and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, Top Shot's cool and all, but where's the NFL product? And where's that at? I mean, how many people are in line for the first NFL pack drop?
Easily 500,000.
500,000.
Like, I mean, that's a minimum. A minimum.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be closer to 1 million if they market it right. And I think that they can, because if they release it over the summer, when after Dapper Labs, they get kind of a lot of these issues smoothed out. If they take over, because they have that NFL section on their website, I think it's already in the works. I just don't know if they've released it yet. But I could easily see it being I could see it actually hitting over 1 million people in line. But I'll be interested to see what the market looks like, because I'm not sure you're going to have those $500-ish Smiths that we had in Series 1 for NBA.
No, I agree. And one thing, I think that if an NFL product comes out, I actually think that it affects the Top Shot market a ton. I think you see a slight dip right in the beginning to Top Shot. Just because people, moving their Dapper balance around to try to invest in some NFL moments, which I'm excited for, man. Think of how much like the Odell catch will go in like a run it back series. I mean, that would be cool. It's an iconic play. What's so cool about the NFL is because it's an event and moment driven sport where you can really like pinpoint one specific play that changes an entire game. That's what elevates the moments for me. Think of how many one big plays there are that change the entire landscape of a game.
Yeah, and imagine that the NFL buys into it and incorporates that. So if you are at the stadium for that Odell catch or whatever it may be in the future, you get that moment. You just have to scan your ticket or whatever it may be in the app. Or I think there's a lot of potential for it. I think that overall, I would love to see an integration between NBA and NFL. Whether it's you share the same Dapper Labs balance or
I definitely think you'll share a balance. That'll definitely happen.
But I think we've talked about it with NFTs in general. I want it all easily accessible in the same place. So I want to be able
Yep.
to, hopefully they create an app. I would love to see an app where you could just flip through, to NFL, NBA, hockey, baseball. I think baseball is going to be a big one because baseball has a ton of money in their baseball cards. I mean, they've been doing that for years. So I think that that's one that will be
Yeah.
interesting when they can start to incorporate that as well. I don't know if it'll be
My
before
problem
the
with baseball is
season.
it's just not as no, it won't. But my problem is with baseball is that it's just not as popular with the younger generation. So that's my issue with baseball. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all sports are declining a little bit with the younger generation and more going into esports. But I think that baseball is, there's a lot of people in their 30s to 60s that love baseball and have the money to spend on, these virtual moments like they do the cards.
Yeah, I just think it's the barrier of entry to NFTs because people would really love them. Like when I explained to someone who's never even heard of cryptocurrencies before, when I explained to them the concept of NFTs and Top Shot, they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Like some people get it. Like if you are someone like with an iPhone and you understand like where the internet is moving, which
Yeah.
a majority of people do, but there's some people who don't. But if you understand that, I mean, you're super into it, which I think is really appealing.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'll be interested to see what the landscape is, and then I think in a year, we're gonna look back on these episodes, and I'm gonna see like where was Top Shot, like what is
Right.
out now, like what else is, because I still am a big believer that this is like one of the first barriers of entry just to NFTs. I'm trying to get into NFTs with other things. I want to see how I can invest in those, how I can potentially sell, make money on those, do different things there because I think that there's going to be a big wave to that. If you time it right, you could probably make some money.
I think Matt trying to pretend to be a collector is funny. Matt's just all in it for the money, and he knows it. Matt's not a collector. He's a flipper at heart, and he doesn't care about the moment. He doesn't care about the project. This dude just wants his dapper balance to go up. That's all he cares about.
See, that's what it was at the beginning. No lie. That's what it was. But when I had to collect, so I think it was, you had to hold 5 moments. And I picked those. I picked based on serial number. I didn't just pick the cheapest one. I picked cards. I picked a lot of Jokic. I think 3 different ones of him right now.
Shout out to the MVP.
MVP. I like I said, I had some Rudy Gobert. I had some Jason Tatum. I think he's an underrated star coming up in the NBA. So yeah, I think that there's always going to. I'm definitely, for those that know me, I'm driven by money, money motivated, money talks. Like I do like that, but I at the same time I do think that it will be something that I use in the future. So we'll see.
Absolutely. All right, we hit on some interesting topics tonight. I apologize for the internet. If anyone has 6 figures they'd like to hand over to me to get Google Fiber installed here in the Pocono Mountains, Matt, is that an investment project that you are interested in? How can I pitch you to get Google Fiber installed here in the Poconos?
I think you just need to move. I think you need to move to
That's
I think
true.
it'd be a lot cheaper to get you a moving truck, and I can
It
maybe
would
come
be.
help with that one.
Yeah, get
Happy
a
to
place
help
down
there.
in get a place down in Atlanta, and
Come
then we
on
just do
down.
live shows every week. It'll be perfect.
We'll get a little studio and everything. Then I won't have to worry about you lagging at all.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, hey, thank you guys again. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss an episode of The Rueb Show.